Sometimes in life, you stumble across a series you know will be a classic in the years to come. Every aspect of it is operating on a different level than everything else to such a degree that it feels pointless to even try to compare them. There are some anime out there that are just that good, and I will never forgive Netflix for tossing Orb on the movements of the Earth into the universe without any degree of celebration. They were too busy promoting the popular anime to take the time to acknowledge that they had one of the greatest anime of the decade airing at the same time. Every episode of Orb ended and I felt the gears in my brain turning, working through what I had just witnessed. It was an obsession of a series that overlaps into so many of the specific things that I love about a series. I finished the series and after gushing about it for an hour on Twitter, I had to sit down and write about it. To me, a truly special piece of art is one that compels me to write about it. I felt I had to. My being wouldn't let me be content with just sitting there appreciating it. I had to write about it. What I love about Orb is twofold. The first is how it deals with curiosity and inquiry. The constant reaffirmation of seeking the truth, seeking the unknown is wonderful. In a time where it's so easy to just sit back and soak up the comfort of a peaceful life, our desire to search never fades. Orb is an anime that never allows stagnation. Something is constantly being pursued, whether it be heliocentrism or just the pursuit of knowledge as a whole. The darkness of ignorance is not allowed to exist in a world full of so much light to be found. For all our principal characters, they're searching for their specific light, the thing that motivates them to walk forward each day. It's inspiring and compelling to watch these characters go through life and death in the pursuit of knowledge. It's sad to watch so many characters die, but all of their deaths feel like progress. They died in full belief that their wishes would be carried onward, and although it took a while, they were. The world accepted heliocentrism, and now it's the model we all learn in schools. We can take for granted these things that were gained for us by those of the past, but we have our own questions to answer. Our own lights to seek in a world that seeks to snuff them out. In our current political climate, it's so easy to see how Orb is going to become a classic, a story of critical thinking and inquiry in a time where that seems to be harder and harder for people to do. They refuse to question, to inquire, but instead cling to whatever truth they're fed. Whatever ChatGPT tells them is now becoming their truth. And then for those who dare to challenge those beliefs, that death awaits for them. The church in Orb is indistinguishable from many parts of the modern church. The only thing that changed was the topic. The other part I love about Orb is how it talks about religion, especially Christianity. Most of the main characters are some degree of religious, and that is never looked down upon. They view the pursuit of knowledge as an order from God, an order to understand. The search for heretics throughout the series tries to point Christianity as this infallible being that cannot be questioned, but our humanity is predicated on questioning. Things can and will be confusing or maybe not make any sense, but we're given the gift of inquiry. We can search for the answers to our questions. We lose ourselves when we cast aside our wonder and curiosity. We're never more lost than when we stop wondering. The final episode of Orb conveys this notion beautifully as Albert is encouraged to look for the light he lost, to look up at the sky and regain his curiosity. I spent most of my life growing up in and around Christianity, even to the point of going to a religious college in the hopes of finally finding the answer to my own faith. I kept agonizing over why I could never quite find an answer that I could accept. I wrestled and wrestled to understand where I could fit in with a religion that seemed to be so content with hatred and lack of thought. In those 4 years, I heard some of the worst things that could be said about LGBTQIA+ people. One day I walked to lunch and just heard the most default transphobic thing I've ever heard, just casually uttered over the phone to someone else. Several days I could feel the aversion to any gay individual and things said and left unsaid. But I could never accept this because it left me with one singular question that I wanted an answer for. How can people live like this, so full of hatred? My inquiry was not some grandiose idea like heliocentrism, it was a desire to understand what made them like this. And Orb provides a solid answer to my question. These are people who have stopped questioning. They never stopped to ask why they hate, they never stopped to self-reflect, they accepted the answer they were fed and refused to think beyond that. They never stopped to question, they never stopped to doubt. Draka is one of the few explicitly atheist characters in Orb, but their presence is so refreshing because it allows the series to reinforce that notion of constantly questioning. She's never content to just let someone believe something blindly, she always goes deeper. Her arc may feel short, but her impact looms large as a character that gets to the core of one of the many things Orb wants the viewer to bring with them. Draka embodies the doubt needed to understand. To fully understand, you must challenge what you think you understand. During my 4 years of struggling to understand, I often felt like it was a burden to be constantly thinking about my relationship with religion. I was always the least religious person involved in any event, but my mind always highlighted that idea. But after finishing Orb, I don't feel that way. In reality, I was neither more or less religious than them. I was merely exploring my own depths. The agonizing thoughts about if I could truly call myself a religious person felt burdensome, but Orb helped me realize they were fruitful. My mental illness-riddled brain would never let me stop questioning either way. Whether it be myself or others, I was always trying to find an answer to my question. Once I finished Orb, I felt validated. All of my years of searching, questioning, struggling were meaningful. I may have felt miserable at times under the burden of thought, but I was a living, breathing human striving toward his own light. I didn't avert my eyes and go about my life. I stared directly at the sun and asked why I was there. I could have just left myself in the dark, but I searched. It's a feeling I don't know if I've ever felt from an anime. I often cite my teenage romantic comedies wrong as expected, or Origairu as the anime that saved my life. There will be a video on this eventually whenever I can figure out how to write it. Because it helped me find a way out of a really dark place in my life. I was depressed and alone, digging myself deeper into a hole of destruction. I consumed the shadows as they ate at my core, and Origairu came in to be a light to cling on to. It grabbed me by the hand and brought me to the surface. I often cite Haikyuu as an anime that changed my life. The uplifting nature of the series and its attitude towards constant growth has been a profound impact on how I treat my life and the pursuit of growth as well. It's a light that holds my hand as I walk forward, reminding me to keep walking. And finally, there's Orb, the anime that reminds me of the light I chased and of the countless lights that I should always be chasing. Using heliocentrism as the main point of the story is a masterful way of interweaving the core theme of the series into the plot. All of the main characters grasp toward their own lights. Every time we look towards the stars, we see the lights everyone is chasing. The light I search for exists along Oxy, Raphael, Copernicus, and every other human being that has existed on Earth. The sky is a reminder to look for lights, for even in the darkest places, there's always a light to be found. Life is this constant search for light that will answer our questions, and our curiosity should be as vast as the expanses of space. Our search for knowledge should always be in the realm of light. Humans were gifted with the ability to think, so we owe it to ourselves or whatever God you believe in to use it. Every day we can wake up with the active decision to be curious, to search for something new to understand. Whether that be why the earth moves like that, or how can people be so full of hate and call themselves a Christian? There are always questions to be asked, and Orb encourages that if we take nothing else from it, to remember to ask why things are the way they are. To be curious, to doubt, to be a full and complete human filled to the brim with the contradictions that come with it. Because to be a human is a contradiction, but what's wrong with that?